RFK Jr., son of Robert Kennedy as well as nephew of former President John F. Kennedy, is running for president as a Democratic nominee.
A supposed anti-establishment figure, he's making headlines everywhere for, quote, challenging the elites. Though, unlike the other anti-establishment presidential candidate we've covered, Cornel West, who's running on the Green Party ticket, RFK Jr. doesn't seem to have genuine critiques of the ruling class.
On the contrary, he is a populist who is spreading dangerous conspiracy theories that actually protect the interests of the ruling class rather than challenge them.
From hopping on the Jordan Peterson podcast to spread climate change denialism and anti-vax propaganda to stoking anti-Semitic and Orientalist conspiracy theories, RFK Jr. is proving to be less of a Robin Hood politician and more of a New Age National Socialist.
So today we're going to discuss RFK Jr. and the Kennedy family, as well as deep dive into the conversation of anti-establishment and populist conspiracy theories. How, despite their branding, they often protect the interests of the ruling class, and why they're dangerous, especially towards sectors of the international proletariat, which they brand as enemies of the people.
But before getting started, this video's been made possible by the fantastic leftwingbooks.net, a radical left-wing distributor based in Montreal where you can find Kurzplebedev's publications, as well as numerous other anti-capitalist, anti-colonialist, feminist and other left-wing texts. In keeping with the themes of this video, leftwingbooks.net has assembled a collection of anti-fascist texts that are currently on special offer. The books in this collection cover a range of important themes like fighting anti-Semitism, combating white supremacy and patriarchy, as well as accounts of the militant fight against fascism, both historically against the Nazis themselves in Germany, and in the modern day against neo-fascist movements like the Proud Boys and the broader alt-right. Leftwingbooks.net is currently offering a 10% discount to all books on their website, including the already discounted Anti-Fascist collection, using the coupon code, you're gonna love this, ANTIFAAUGUST. Get over there ASAP as this offer expires on the 17th of August. Free shipping is available on all North American orders over $50, and inexpensive shipping is also available on all Kurzplebedev publications in Europe. A massive thanks to leftwingbooks.net for sponsoring this video and making its production possible, as well as for helping to spread the revolutionary political message throughout all their hard work. And now, back to the video. So, Anna, who is Robert F. Kennedy Jr.?
RFK is an environmental attorney, activist, and writer.
Apart from belonging to one of the most famous and wealthy American political dynasties, he's also known for his involvement in environmental causes, particularly around water and air pollution, industrial pollution, and climate change. Due to his promise to, quote, end forever wars, take on the, quote, corporate kleptocracy, and tackle the climate crisis, RFK Jr.'s presidential campaign received some support from supposed anti-imperialists and progressives at first.
But given his history of fascist rhetoric, as well as his recent troubling remarks, the bulk of support for his campaign is coming from very different political tendencies.
As the World Socialist website points out, for the past 20 years, RFK Jr. has been one of the most prominent promoters of the conspiracy theory that vaccines cause autism because of the high mercury content in them.
This is, of course, absolute BS. Autism is a neurodivergence and not a disease caused by mercury.
Since 2015, RFK Jr. has become the leader of the Children's Health Defense, formerly known as the World Mercury Project, a non-profit that promotes vaccine misinformation and, quote, alternative medicine, which is just code for-profit fake, quote, remedies sold to misinformed working class people who harbour distrust against health institutions.
Due to his family name, as well as his constant promotion of anti-vax conspiracy theories, RFK Jr. has helped increase the yearly revenue of CHD from $500,000 a year to $6.8 million 5 years after he joined.
It might come as no surprise that since the start of the pandemic, he and the CHD have been promoting COVID-19 vaccine misinformation, accusing Dr. Anthony Fauci of helping to quote, orchestrate and execute 2020's historic coup d'etat against Western democracy.
Even more troubling is that he was recently recorded saying that COVID-19 is a form of ethnically targeted biological warfare created by the government of China, which mysteriously doesn't kill Chinese people or Jews.
To quote the man himself, COVID-19 attacks certain races disproportionately. COVID-19 is targeted to attack Caucasians and black people. The people who are most immune are Ashkenazi Jews and the Chinese. We do know that the Chinese are spending hundreds of millions of dollars developing ethnic bioweapons.
These comments, perhaps unsurprisingly, have gained him a lot of support from openly fascist and white supremacist figures such as Catholic nationalist and proud anti-Semite Nick Fuentes, who cheered his campaign launch in April and said that his platform was pretty good. Never a good sign.
He's also gained a lot of support from eugenicists, pseudo-doctors, and other far-right figures, many of whom attended his presidential campaign launch in Boston. Supporters include Christiane Northrup, an anti-vax QAnon conspiracy theorist and self-described, quote, deep state hater who attended his Boston campaign launch. Jason D. Bowles from RTA Strategy, who's RFK Jr.'s super PAC treasurer, and even Elon Musk, who hosted him on a Twitter space moderated by David Sachs to discuss and denounce COVID-19 lockdowns and mask wearing. Now you might be asking yourself, if he's so anti-corporate kleptocracy, why is he supported by so many billionaires and capitalists?
It's because he's actually not anti-establishment. Because to be anti-establishment, you have to, at the very least, be anti-capitalist.
RFK Jr., on the other hand, describes himself as a quote, free market absolutist, and only targets the ruling class, which he insists are participating in a quote, system of socialism for the rich, as well as the supposed quote, cabal of people in the World Economic Forum and intelligence agencies.
Oh, I wonder what he could possibly be implying with that. To do a rapid-fire summary of all of the, I guess for lack of better term, problematic positions that this man has espoused on his platform, I'm just going to read out a list to you. He promised that if he was elected, he would seal the borders and commented it is a key existential function of every country in the world to control immigration at its borders, to have millions of people flowing across the borders, nothing any nation can or should put up with. He believes that chemicals in the water supply are producing gender dysphoria. He believes antidepressants cause mass shootings. He believes radiation from wireless internet causes leaky brain. He believes AIDS might not be caused by HIV, but has not offered any other alternative as to where they come from.
Due to his right-wing politics, Fox News and other conservative media outlets are covering him extensively in a positive light, despite him running for the Democratic nomination, arguing that the Democrats are trying to quote, infringe on his right to free speech, to stop him from beating Joe Biden in the Democratic primary. RFK Jr. himself agrees with these claims, accusing the White House and the quote, corporate feudalists and kleptocrats on YouTube and other media outlets of trying to deplatform him for speaking the truth. This rhetoric, promoted by Fox News and RFK Jr., has gained him followers amongst those in the US that feel that the quote, deep state is infringing on their right to free speech, and who agree with everything he said in the videos that YouTube and other social media outlets have since taken down.
Though he may not be popular in the party that he's running for, neither's Joe Biden.
75% of Democratic and Democratic-leaning voters want the party to nominate someone other than President Joe Biden in the 2024 election. And in and outside of the party itself, it's clear that his reactionary populist platform is gaining its followers, which, based on his reliance on anti-communist, anti-Semitic, Orientalist and ableist conspiracy theories to gain popularity, is quite alarming. RFK Jr.'s campaign has received 6 million donations so far, and while still only supported by 14.2% of Democratic voters, he surpasses the support for Marianne Williamson, the more progressive-leaning candidate in the Democratic presidential primary, greatly further indicating the reactionary nature and recent further rightward shift of the Democratic Party. So the US now has one far-right party in the Republicans and a slightly less right-wing party in the Democrats. The gradual descent into fascism is real.
Truly, Paul, truly, because I've been wanting to talk about RFK Jr. and the Kennedy family as a whole for a while, because at least in my high school, I was taught that JFK was one of the best and most progressive presidents the United States ever had. At least by liberals, the Kennedy family is revered for their role in the civil rights movement, and the mythology of RFK Jr.'s own father, Robert Kennedy Sr., paints him as the president that should have been, which would have saved the American people from the Nixon presidency had he not been assassinated. There's a whole documentary about this. There's a bunch of Democrats on Twitter and on the news condemning RFK Jr. for dishonoring the legacy of his family by being, the way he is. But is RFK Jr.'s fascist rhetoric truly an outlier in the Kennedy family?
I suspect a lot of people would believe so, yeah.
Wrong. Incorrect. No.
Go on then, so Anna, give us the tea on the Kennedy family.
The Kennedy family has a long history of being anti-communist pieces of shit who sided, sympathized with, or justified fascism at home and abroad, and believed and promoted many reactionary and often anti-Semitic populist rhetoric. They're truly the O'Duffy type of Irish Catholics, unfortunately.
Ugh. Where's the anti-treaty IRA when you need them?
Let's start with the grandpa of the fam. Joseph Kennedy Sr., father of JFK and RFK. He was a Nazi sympathizer, and he was friends with the anti-Semitic and anti-communist priest Charles Cullen. Joseph Kennedy reportedly wanted the United States to have a good relationship with Nazi Germany, and even attempted to arrange a one-on-one meeting with Hitler twice to improve those relations. This probably had to do with the fact that, as the letters he exchanged with a certain Viscountess Astor showed, Granddaddy Kennedy looked at Hitler as a welcome solution to the world problems of communists and Jews. Yeah, Kennedy was a Jew hater. According to the embassy aides who worked for him when he was ambassador of the United Kingdom, he habitually referred to Jewish people using slurs. One aide said that he'd told him, "Some individual Jews are all right, but as a race, they stink. They spoil everything they touch." In another private letter with Miss Little Viscountess Astor, he remarked that the Jew media of the United States has become a problem, that Jewish pundits in New York and Los Angeles were already making noises contrived to set a match to the fuse of the world.
Well, it doesn't look like the apple fell far from the tree there. The Jews made communism to kill white Christians. The Jews helped China to create COVID-19 to destroy the West.
Truly, anti-Semitic conspiracy theories run deep in that Kennedy blood. Additionally, RFK is running on the promise that he will be an anti-establishment and status quo hater by being a classic liberal and free market absolutist, like JFK and RFK Sr. were before him. And he wants to stop endless wars, just like his dad, RFK Sr., promised he would on the campaign trail when it came to the Vietnam War. Yes, his dad presented himself as an anti-war candidate,
which I find quite hilarious because RFK Sr. was murked by a Palestinian for supporting the state of Isn't Real and trying to send 50 fighter jet planes to that state to use against the Palestinian people, which is a deliberate act of war, but whatever. RFK Sr. also presided over much of the Cuban Missile Crisis while serving in his brother's presidential cabinet and was responsible for the Bay of Pigs attempt to coup the Cuban government, which failed. Also impossible to forget that despite John F. Kennedy's legacy as one of the civil rights presidents, as many liberals like to point out, he still presided over the initiation of the Cuban embargo, which, as we have spoken about previously on this channel, set out specifically to starve out, harm, and kill the Cuban people in order to force a color revolution and possibly reinstate the fascist dictator Batista. JFK was a fierce anti-communist that threw money and arms at fascist dictatorships and banana republics across Latin America, Africa, and the Middle East, supported South Vietnam and fascist and other anti-communist forces in Southeast Asia. He supported and had a really good relationship with the Nazi-infiltrated government of West Germany, constantly collaborated with bourgeois anti-communist Nazi sympathizers and other nationalists from Eastern European countries in hopes of toppling the Soviet Union. And while he did not like the CIA and, for example, was against them killing Lumumba, he still wanted Lumumba arrested and supported Mobutu so that the American businessmen in the Congo could still thrive off privately owning and mining Congolese land and resources. He was an imperialist, a bourgeois enemy of the people, a wolf hidden under the "I'm not like the other establishment goons. I hate the CIA and segregation is kind of bad, but I don't want to say that too much because it'll alienate my voters" guys that he based his entire persona on to confuse the sheep into loving him. Just like RFK Jr. is doing now with the supposed cabal of elites and intelligence agencies that he supposedly hates. So what's the difference here? How far is his rhetoric from the rhetoric of most Democrats back then and Democrats right now? Not that far, which proves both that he's not an anti-establishment figure and that the Democratic Party is not that far away from fascist rhetoric. He fits right into the Kennedy family fold, and we need to stop pretending like he doesn't.
Very well said, yeah. Now, it goes without saying that the laws used to exonerate imperialists like the Kennedy family and detach Robert F. Kennedy Jr. from their legacy is nothing more than blatant historical revisionism. So I'd like to talk a little bit more about populism itself. We've used this word populist to describe RFK Jr.'s politics a lot in this video, so I think it's only fair for us to explain what populism is, specifically in its right-wing variants, and how it can be used to divert working class anger away from the true perpetrators of their suffering, the ruling class.
Populism is a political strategy that seeks to mobilize the working class and petite bourgeois class against a perceived elite or ruling class. Populist leaders often portray themselves as champions of the people, promising to address their grievances and fight for their interests against the corrupt elites who are destroying and degrading their democracy. But as you said, Paul, populist movements are often a plot to divert working class anger away from the true perpetrators of their suffering and maintain the existing capitalist system. In the case of Robert F. Kennedy Jr., his campaign seeks to bridge the divide between left and right by using populist rhetoric about the health industry and the global cabal of elites that are pressing the working man to confuse and divert working class and petty bourgeois anger at capitalism in a different direction, a right-wing direction, as far as possible from anti-capitalism as he can be, while still appearing to be against the capitalist establishment. So, who do these populist leaders divert this anger towards? Historically, it has been either against a portion of the ruling class while still praising and collaborating with another portion of the ruling class, which is a common trick used in interclass warfare and competition between the so-called left and right elements of the bourgeoisie, or just warring bourgeois countries, the US capitalist innovators standing up to the conniving, evil Russian oligarchs, Rhetoric being a prime example of this. Or the other option, a scapegoat, particularly a group of people which can be found amongst the working class, immigrants, ethnic or religious minorities, left-wing political ideologies. The bad elites and scapegoats rhetoric are very much present in RFK Jr.'s platform, as you can see. By directing anger towards scapegoats within the working class rather than real enemies, bourgeoisie, populism can fragment the unity among the working class and can be the source of inspiration for violence against more marginalized sectors of a country's working class by other working class people. Populist rhetoric also confuses and diverts working class revolutionary potential by oversimplifying or misrepresenting complex economic and social problems, as well as offering easy answers and solutions, ones that do not address the root causes of their suffering. RFK Jr.'s answer to the complex question of autistic people in an ableist world is autism is a disease given to people via vaccines, so stop vaccinating your kids and give the Children Health Defense some money, please.
So we just covered how right-wing populism diverts the blame of working people's suffering to a scapegoat in order to protect the interests of the ruling class. With this in mind, it's easy to see how this right-wing populism and fascism can blend seamlessly into one another. Fascism offers the aesthetic of revolutionary change, but it ultimately preserves the ruling class's status quo. By harnessing popular energy to punch down at vulnerable groups that it scapegoats as the source of society's problems, rather than punching up at the ruling class who actually have caused the problems. In this way, fascism appears revolutionary in form, but is actually counter-revolutionary in content and essence. In the case of RFK Jr. and his campaign and his supporters, the Communist Party of China, as well as Jewish people, seem to be the major targets of this scapegoating. Now, this isn't the only right-wing populist leader who's made Orientalist and anti-Semitic comments as of late. He's not even the only one in the United States. The resurgence in popularity of this kind of rhetoric globally has led to an increase of anti-Asian and anti-Semitic hate crimes against these working class communities worldwide. So how should communists and genuine progressives more broadly counter this in countries where this Orientalist and anti-Semitic rhetoric is gaining popularity?
In my personal opinion, as a communist, as well as a member of both of these communities, I think that it is the responsibility of every communist in countries where this rhetoric is popular and where there is a sizable Asian and Jewish population to, as we always have, counter immaterial conspiracies with historical materialism, with the tools that the science of Marxism has given us to counter these lies. We also need to be the most vocal supporters of every section of the proletariat and refuse to fall into tailist rhetoric and collaborate with populist forces who are spreading these anti-Asian and anti-Semitic sentiments. As an anti-imperialist Filipina, my personal opinion on the Chinese government doesn't stop the Orientalist propaganda against the CCP by the West, particularly by its biggest economic rival, the United States, from turning to violence against Asian Americans, including Filipinos, in the US. It is a fact that anti-Asian hate crimes have increased in the United States during the pandemic due to the xenophobic rhetoric which many congressmen, celebrities, and other rich people have spread about China, creating this virus. The Kung Fu flu, as some referred to it as, either to weaken or kill the people of the West, or that this virus spread because Chinese people are dirtier, immoral, or inferior to the people of the West. As students of Marxism, as progressive forces around the world, we must counter this xenophobic propaganda to protect our Asian proletariat wherever we are and wherever they are. We need to say, no, COVID-19 is not a bioweapon developed by China to wipe out white people. It's not ethnically targeted to spare Chinese and Jewish people. 1 million people have died from COVID in China. The reason why we are dying from COVID here in the US is not because China is trying to kill us off, it's because our government is neglecting the needs of its citizens in favor of the profits of private medical corporations. We also, as communists, need to become experts at identifying anti-Semitic, Orientalist, ableist, anti-Black, anti-immigrant canards coming from the mouths of populist leaders, both in its overt and covert forms. For example, there's two sides of RFK Jr.'s anti-Semitic rhetoric. One of them is overt, the claim that Jews are somehow involved in the creation of COVID-19 to kill off non-Jews in collaboration with the Communist Party of China. That is very clearly and obviously an example of old, very easily identifiable anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, namely the conspiracy theory that Jews control the world and are behind all the suffering of humanity because they're an evil race that killed Jesus, I guess, is the explanation that an anti-Semite would give you. Also, the Judeo-Bolshevik conspiracy that suggests that Jews created communism to destroy tradition and control the world, based if true, not true though. And you can also kind of associate it with the conspiracy theory of blood libel, which has existed for centuries and has spread the myth that Jews drink the blood of Christian children for Passover, which evolved to Jews want to kill Christians through spreading diseases like the Black Plague and COVID and whatnot because they eat people and drink blood. Anyone who knows anything about kosher laws will tell you that humans don't chew their cud or have split hooves, and you need to drain blood out of any meal before eating it. So how is that halachically possible? That was a joke for the Jews watching. You're welcome. But anyways, the other side of his anti-Semitic rhetoric, his populist anti-Semitic rhetoric, is covert. Instead of saying Jews, he says banks. He says globalists. He says cabal of elites, because those are dog whistles. We need to familiarize ourselves as communists with these terms and have them be warning bells in our heads that indicate that the person in question may be an anti-Semite. Before that video of him explicitly being anti-Semitic, he has been using those dog whistles. And some anti-imperialists and other leftists were still supporting and retweeting him saying those words, hopefully because they don't understand what he actually meant by them. That's not good. We should know these dog whistles. We also need to generally be wary of people who try to downplay the Holocaust by comparing it to specifically non-comparable situations, like, for example, mandatory vaccines, which RFK Jr. has compared it to the Holocaust, as well as not be as lenient and forgiving as liberals are when someone comes out as an anti-Semite and immediately tries to remedy the situation by doing an I Love Israel world tour, which is exactly what RFK Jr. has been doing in response to this. I don't hate Jews. I love Israel. You recognize this, right? I support the state of Israel because I believe in Jewish self-determination. I'm not an enemy to you. I swear, I didn't mean it like that. I am going to be speaking to the chief rabbi of the illegal settlement of blah, blah, blah today about the rise of anti-Semitism on college campuses. We need to be the ones to say that's bullshit, okay? We need to be the ones that say, no, you being a supporter of a settler colony in the Middle East, which serves as a landing strip, a base, a puppet state for the US imperialists and other Western powers to continue ravaging the Middle East, does not change the fact that you are an anti-Semite. Because we know liberals don't have the ability to say that, to admit that. Just as liberals don't have the ability to say, this Orientalist propaganda, this xenophobic propaganda against China is not true. They don't have the ability to say that. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Marxism Today. If you'd like to support our independent left-wing media, consider joining our Patreon. The link is below, and as always, a massive thank you to our current supporters. Buenas tardes, noches y mañanas, casamas, adios y shalom.